Hello, everyone. My name is Nicholas Marx. I'm a full-time English instructor at Ritsumeikan University. Today, for the Teachers Journey 2021 conference by the Teachers Development SIG of JALT, I'd like to talk about a research I did looking at teachers' rationale for technology in English classes. Basically, why do we choose the technology we use in our English classes? This started off with a little bit of my journey. Last year, I was thrown into emergency remote teaching, like many of us probably have been. And during that time, I suffered quite a few physical and mental strains. Of course, there were things like eye strain, discomfort from sitting long hours, fingers and wrist strain from typing on the keyboard and using the mouse, but more importantly, unknowingness of what's going to happen. With the COVID pandemic, a lot of us were thrown into online teaching all of a sudden. And we didn't have a lot of time to adapt, or we didn't know how to adapt to this new, I guess, normal. It's basically a normal at this point. And there wasn't that much professional development going on in my own context. I didn't, everyone was still trying to figure things out. It was still new. And for me, I didn't know what worked and what didn't work. And I think a lot of people also didn't know this. And there weren't as many opportunities to find this out at the beginning of ERT, right? Most conferences were just canceled. And then, later on in the year, they were put online. But at the beginning, there wasn't a whole lot to go off of. So I kind of started more self-reflecting on my own teaching, especially after about a year of ERT. So after the 2020 school year, I started thinking more and more about what am I doing, right? I don't know what the future is going to hold. I don't know if we're going to be on campus as the plans were set, or are we going to be online again? And as the 2021 spring term has already passed, we were mostly online. So, so there was a need to adapt and reassess pedagogic practices and technology-based practices that I was doing in the 2020 school year. And I couldn't use emergency remote teaching as an excuse or a rationale like I did before. A lot of the things, oh, it's emergency remote teaching, I just have to get through it, and then I can go back to normal. But is it really emergency remote teaching in year 2? Probably not, right? Whether it's going to be hybrid or online, I needed to adapt. So I started asking myself questions. I asked myself some self-reflection questions, right? What am I doing? So simply, what am I doing? Am I making good informed choices? So what I'm doing in class, are they informed, or am I just doing it to do it? And then why? Why am I doing those things? So I have to ask myself, not only am I making good informed choices, but if I am, why? Or if I'm not, why? And then I have to reflect on my own classes, my courses, right? So I had to start thinking, well, will the students leave this class with anything valuable? Okay. It might not be linguistically valuable, but could it be practically valuable? And can I provide special value of being online or hybrid? So I often feel like with my classes face-to-face, with minimal use of technology, that I feel like the tasks themselves give the students value when they move on in the future. But is there a way I can provide a special value of doing online and hybrid? Maybe I can include a technological value, or maybe I can create new tasks that add value that can only really be done with an online component. And can I provide that? And if I can, how? So I started asking myself these questions. And I felt like just my own self-reflection isn't quite good enough. So I wanted to also ask other education professionals, other teachers, English teachers in Japan, what are some of the reasons that they chose their technology? to give me some insight and to better understand why I choose mine. So I did a short research with a very short questionnaire that basically had some background questions and then questions, these two questions. What technology do you use or have you used in your English classes? And why? Two questions. So those two questions were asked a couple of times, about 5 times, and they could answer as much or as little as they want. It was open-ended, and then there was an additional section that they can include more past 5 technologies that they used and to give their rationale for it. So in this research, I was lucky enough to have 22 educators participate. And I posted these to 2 technology-specific online professional development groups. One of them was Online Teaching Japan, or OTJ, which is a Facebook group that's been very useful for many teachers for not only learning about new technologies, but also to troubleshoot their problems. And it has quite a large group of constituents, right? A large group of members. And then the other group, which a large percentage of the participants came from, was the JALT Call, Computer Assisted Language Learning, SIG Facebook group. And they were also very helpful. And they've been also a great resource for educators during this global crisis. And they were super helpful for this research. So to get a little bit more into the research, right, I wanted to ask the background. Some of them worked at a couple of different teaching contexts, but most were university with some Tandai, a Kosen, junior high school, and a Senmongakko, right, specialty school. They all come from various different, I guess, terms of education background for teaching background. We have some from 0 to 5 years all the way up to 20+ years. And there was, I think, a good spread of different, I guess, time in the profession, right? Years in the education profession. So it was a good split, a very nice split that can tell a lot. So to get a little bit into the results, I don't want to take too long with these. There's going to be a lot of words. So if you would like to, I will please pause the video if you would like to read a little bit more about the individual answers. I'll go over them quickly in general. So the first kind of main answer is related to the institution. So a lot of the rationale was related to the institution, and we'll take a look at that. So this was the first main rationale. Things that like Zoom, Moodle, Google Classroom, Web Class, Campus, Manaba, and BrainPop, these were all different applications or websites that were institutionally authorized or mandated for the teachers. So as we can see with Google Classroom, Manaba, Moodle, Web Class, and Campus, these are all learning management systems, or LMSs. And the LMSs are important for educators as a central place to have student data and teacher assignments, quizzes, grades, things like that. Basically, most institutions have an LMS. And of course, the educators generally don't get to choose their LMS. Sometimes they do, but not always, especially universities. So as we can see here, we have a lot of LMSs and different reasons. For example, Google Classroom, university selected and supported. Ease of use, university uses Google. Our school, K through 12, uses Google. Manaba, school requires it. University authorization, university recommends. Web Class, university centralized system. Moodle, our school has been using Moodle as the main learning platform, and Campus, forced to by the admin, right? Very strong wording. And of course, we have other things like BrainPop. This person, we have a subscription, so I'm guessing their school has a subscription, and they use it with their students to slow down audio, closed captioning, quizzes. And Zoom. One thing during ERT that emerged was the use of Zoom or Teams or things like that. But I think Zoom kind of took the large market share at the beginning. And this was used as a conferencing for your classes. So these can be often required by the university. So, of course, we have the institutional rationale. These are things that the institution have chosen, and the teachers have to follow it because they were chosen by the institution. Of course, it's having the institution choose your technology isn't always bad. For example, this person, this was for Zoom. Their full-time job chose Zoom for them, but they got used to it, so they used it in their part-time job. This person with the Moodle one, they also think that because they use Moodle, they like using it, right? They like using it, and they're good. They think they're good at utilizing it fully. And of course, university uses Google Classroom, and it's easy, right? Easy to use. So it's not always bad to have the LMS. In my experiences, I never enjoyed the LMSs. I've used .campus. I did not like that much. It was quite hard to use for me. I used Manaba last year, which is a little bit easier than .campus, but there are some things that it needs to do better. It's not always the easiest or the quickest to use. And I've used Google Classroom, which I found so far has been the easiest to utilize, but it's not always approved or authorized by the university or paid for by the university. So sometimes we don't get a choice. And there's varying degrees of how it works out. Some people love it and some people not so much, as with the person who used .campus. They were forced to, right? So this was for the institutional rationale. We're going to move on quickly to the next part. And this is about the educators, about us, right? About the educators. We have rationale in choosing technology also. Of course, this is about the educators' perception of the rationale for theirs. So there'll be a lot in this section. And it boils down to mostly two ideas. The first idea is that these technologies are easy to use. So there's an ease of use for these, mostly for the teacher, but also could be potentially for the student in this section. So, right, Google Classroom, ease of use, easy to share, easy way to manage students, free, versatile, good support for Moodle, right? So the Teams Almighty, Zoom, free video conferencing, so it's free. Google Drive, free, can share. All of these are related to being easy to use or perceived to be easy to use by the educator, by the teacher. So often we tend to try to choose technology, and the main rationale is just that it's easy, right? It's easy to use. Even with Flipgrid, even though I had a lot of problems with Flipgrid with other things, it was easy to use for many students. It was very easy to figure out UI, and it wasn't that hard. Just there were other issues with it from my classes. So ease of use is one important feature of the technology we use. And another one is teacher-specific reasons. These are the teacher-centered ideas. For example, this person used Moodle. Their rationale for using Moodle is that they use it as an instructor and a graduate student. So they use Moodle because they know how to use Moodle. They're used to it. Google Forms, quizzes, homework, self-grading, teacher-centered. Google Docs, tests, documents, easily uploaded to Google Classroom. That's also teacher-centered. It's easier for the teacher. And it integrates well with their LMS, right? Quizlet, this reason was that it helps the teacher differentiate vocabulary and keeps them organized. Zoom, again, we already talked about this one, that their full-time job chose it for them. but they liked it, so they chose it for their part-time job too. They could have done something else, but they brought it to their part-time job. Zip grade, again, makes it easy for the teacher. And Loom, Loom mostly recording. Of course, students can use Loom too, but I think a lot of educators use Loom to screen capture their screen and to make videos for their classes. I've also used Loom. But again, these are all teacher specific. So again, we have the ease of use for the rationale for teacher chosen technology. And we have the teacher specific, the teacher centered reasons. A lot of this has to do with grading and posting assignments. And finally, we have the student rationale. These are things related to just the student. Flipgrid, X-Reading, Kahoot, Voyant Tools, Padlet, Quizlet. Right? So these are all related to that these things would be easy for the student or useful for the student. So for example, if we look at Kahoot, it's fun, easy, good review. Students can make their own. It creates energy and enthusiasm, right? It's student-centered. It's a fun way to do review in face-to-face classes. Again, they want it to be fun. It's student-centered. Voyant Tools, this is for this teacher rationale for choosing Voyant Tools was pedagogically advantageous for the students. It encourages the students to look at reading. It helps them identify and parse ideas. And they can compare their writing to samples. Right? So it's pedagogically student focused. And then there's other, of course you can read the other ones. They're generally student focused, right? Something about that it's useful for the student or easy for the student, or it's collaborative. But that's not it. We also have, kind of more importantly, a combination of two or more of these ideas, the institution, the student, and the educator. So let's take a look at some of these. As you can see here, things like Quizlet, Kahoot, Edmodo, Google Docs, and Slides, these aren't just for the student or for the teacher or for the institution. They can be a mix of everything or a mix of two or more, right? Easy for both students and teachers, right? This teacher can give students very targeted vocabulary list, which makes it's also accessible. There's games, it's fun. The teacher can view student activity, okay? Kahoot, fun, easy, quick, and excellent for formative assessment. So it's easy for the teacher or good for the teacher to use to assess the students. And it's also fun, easy, and quick for the students. Okay. Edmodo, it's easy for this teacher to use it as a LMS, and it's free and easy to get for the students to sign up. And things like collaboration, it allows collaboration and feedback. And it's also easy for students to use. There are also more, right? BrainPop, X-Reading, Zoom, and Nearpod. You could please pause and read these if you would like. But they're all related to two or three of the elements of the institution, the educator, and the student. And I think this is kind of important to look at these three ideas because this kind of makes up a already known idea. When I was looking more into this process of these rationale, I ran into of course, things that we already know as professionals, or many of us know as professionals. And this is what I consider the ideal framework, and I think many people do too. And this comes from the idea of needs, which came from, of course, in TESOL, it came from ESP, right? English for specific purposes, and was adapted into task-based teaching. And the needs are what, right? The needs of the student, the needs of the institution, and the needs of the educator. And I think that's what we should think about when we work through our rationale for technology. We need to look at it as a kind of a three-pronged idea, like a triangle. We have the institution, we have the student, and we have the educator. Well, I think we need to meet in the middle. I don't think we should be choosing technology to fit the institution. I don't think we should be choosing technology only for the educator. And I don't think we should be choosing technology through the student. And I think the rationale for the teachers in this research, they've shown one or two elements of this, and sometimes they even show all three elements. But I think the ones that generally are more confident and work better with their rationale were the ones in the middle that encompass each part. How can we use technology and to incorporate it into the institutional technology? For example, Zoom. Well, what can we use that benefits the student and the educator with Zoom from the institution? Or if it's the LMS, how can we use certain things from the educator and certain needs of the student and implement those into the LMS to make it easier and more efficient and have more value? So we need to look at this idea of needs, I think. And I did a research and presented it at the JALT call conference this year that looked at the student perception of technological needs. And a lot of the needs that the student found were things that can be used in the future. So collaborative tools. So I think by using more collaborative tools, it's also good, and it'll also hit the ideal, because collaborative tools help the educator, it helps the students, and it helps the institution. We have to think, why these three? And why do I care? Why should I, care about the institution? Right? I'm selfish. Why should I care about the student? I sometimes think that. Or we should be teaching student-centered. We shouldn't consider ourselves or the institution. Well, I think one thing I learned from this kind of research and my own self-reflection practices is that we have to think of, why do we teach? When you teach, do you teach for yourself? Okay. Is it about you? Yeah, maybe a little bit. I definitely enjoy teaching. It's a job I enjoy. That's why I do it. Or is it for the institution? I like to work for my institution. No matter where I work, I find a lot of pride in it. I believe in the higher education system. I think everyone should be educated. I think everyone should have equal chances of education. And I think that I like being paid. Yeah, I'm sure a lot of us do. Right? So I do work for my institution. I do teach for the institution, the ideology. And I also, do you teach for the learner? I teach for the learners. I mean, I care about the students. I want them to do well. I want them to grow. I want to see them progress throughout the term. And maybe throughout the years, if I have them for multiple years. And I like to get to know them. There's a social aspect to teaching that I really enjoy. So I do teach for myself, right? I have selfish intentions. I enjoy it. I do teach for the institution, right? I believe in the institution, and I like to get rewarded for my work. And I also do teach for the learners. I do care about them as people and as students. So if you're like me, do you teach for all of them? Because I do. And I think that when I start making choices, and more so this year I've done it than the previous year, I started making more choices, pedagogic choices, task-based choices, and technology choices. I simplified them, and I also looked at them within this, this concept of a little bit of everything, right? Can I address all these with it? So I didn't use Flipgrid this year because it didn't really fit into these three ideas. Instead, I switched to Zoom. Zoom fit better within the institution for me, and I could incorporate other things within Zoom to help. I encourage students to use Zoom outside of class too, as collaboration. I found in my other research for the JALT call conference that students thought Zoom would be something that's not only helpful now, it's helpful in their other classes, and they think it'll be helpful in their future jobs. So I like to use Zoom more. Also, another thing is collaborative tools. Students found that collaborative tools would be very important in their future. So I started nudging them, not forcing, nudging them to use Office tools in a collaborative way. So by putting them in the class time, having them go to breakout rooms and share documents in the class time, I accessed those documents to make sure they were working and seeing what they were doing and give them advice. So collaborative tools too. But these are all simple ideas that fit within the needs of all three of these. And I found them to be very useful. And I found keeping it simple helped a lot. There are other collaborative tools that I really would like to try to use more in the future, like Nearpod and Padlet. I think Padlet could be potentially a good one. So I'd like to try to use those too. So I hope that you could use this video and this presentation as a little bit time for self-reflection also. Think about why you're teaching and how can we put these concepts into a easy to digest for our learners and to implement our technologies better within the needs kind of triangle, the institution, the educator, and the student. So I hope that you could get some benefit out of this presentation, or at least use it as a some kind of self-reflection, or even just background noise. So thank you very much. If you have any questions, please feel free to email me. And I hope that you have a great 2021, the rest of your 2021 school year. And I hope everyone stays healthy and safe. And thank you very much for watching.